Hey everybody, this is Danny Vader and welcome to Season 2, Episode 11 of our Back to Life podcast. Our guest today, you're going to enjoy his story. Actually, a couple stories on his journey. His name is Bob Conlin, and he'll start out talking about his story of addiction and how he battled through that from a young teenager who was very much into rock and roll, all the way through when he was a clinical care nurse in a hospital, and he was actually stealing the drugs. Very, very powerful story. You want to hear how he hit rock bottom and then moved through that time in his life and came back and found some happiness and got into a relationship with a wonderful woman after a divorce. And then he and this woman were getting ready to have a baby, and then life threw him another curveball during COVID. So you want to listen in to his journey, and you're going to see pretty much how he taps into his awareness and the difference between knowing that we need to grow and we need to change and having an awareness about that. And then also the importance of asking for help. So listen up, enjoy, reflect, take some things away for yourself as I get into a conversation with our guest, Bob Conlin. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our Back to Life podcast. As always, I'm excited for our guests, and today is certainly no exception. As you heard in our intro, our guest is Bob Conlin. So, Bob, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I met Bob, as I said, through my nephew, and we've chatted several times now. And he and I did an event, a wonderful event that he sponsored. So Bob, why don't you tell everybody? I mean, you have quite an interesting journey, right?
Sure.
And this podcast is called Back to Life. And I know every day we come back to life, and we got to figure out a few things. Sometimes figuring them out is a longer journey, a more intense journey. So I know earlier in your life, you had a pretty intense journey. Why don't you kind of walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. But I think like every day we get to have and create a new version of ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And when I know that now, but you're back in probably the darkest part of my life. I wasn't clear with that at all. Mm-hmm. For the majority of my life, I would say that I've been searching for something, like seeking something. Mm-hmm. From the age 7, 8 on, right around coincidentally the time that my father had passed away. My father passed when I was very, very young. Mm-hmm. And that was such a defining moment in my life of constantly searching and looking for something outside of myself. And as I got older, I was always a big kid. I was always like the biggest kid in the group, and that afforded me relationships with older people because they just thought I was as old as them.
Right. Yeah.
As an 8, 9-year-old, I'm hanging out with teenagers.
Yeah.
And I got exposed to a lot of things in my life early on that I think most kids normally wouldn't, basically in the form of 1, rock and roll, and mm-hmm. 2, drugs. And my relationship with, rock and roll, my relationship with that lifestyle and partying and drinking, and I was just part of essentially like who I was. It was almost part of my identity. Mm-hmm. Fast forward 20 years, and here I am, an adult man in his late 20s, and I haven't grown out of it. Essentially, I haven't grown out of the drinking and the drugging, and everything just seemed to start to escalate. And again, this is all coming from that seeking something outside of myself to make me feel connected, make me feel a certain way, make me feel something. Mm-hmm. And I started to go down a much darker and darker path. It was heavier drugs. It was poorer and poorer choices. And mm-hmm. there was consequences all around me, right. Mounting up. And it didn't matter. I just kept going darker and deeper. Mm. And, through this process, I managed to graduate college, and I managed to get a Bachelor of Science and a degree as a registered nurse. I was mm-hmm. a cardiac care registered nurse for a good 10 years. Mm-hmm. And that job in itself was a big contributor to my event, is what I call it, the thing that brought me to my knees. Mm-hmm. And
So you're partying pretty good through your 20s, and you're still going to college and getting your degree.
Yeah.
And was it daily drinking and drugs or weekend?
It was, I mean, it started just like, just weekends, like working for the weekend, Friday night, 6:00, it's going. And then all of a sudden it was like a Tuesday night, Thursday. And then, basically the whole week turned into a weekend.
Right. And what drugs, weed, cocaine, what were you?
Mainly cocaine, heroin, any kind of pill I could put in my body, mainly like opiates, downers.
Sure.
That was the main the main players, I guess I would say. And then of course alcohol, whiskey was my my fave for that. So
yeah, the whiskey demon, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I had a vodka demon for many years.
Yeah. So long story short, here I am, this critical care nurse, and I also happened to be I was in like a leadership role called a clinical coordinator, and I was also in charge of all of the monitoring and inventory of the narcotics.
Oh,
so you could probably already tell where this is going.
I'm connecting some dots, but I think we want to listen in here. So here, I mean, you're in a leadership position, and something inside of you is off, right?
Right.
Because you and I talk about the difference between knowing and awareness. So I think you're going to bring us to a little awareness part here.
Yeah, totally. So there was, there's a moment where I just started taking all the work home with me. I was taking all of these high-powered narcotics home with me and using them. And what the first, I guess, part of that awareness was like, man, this is not right. Like my heart broke every day that I would use and drink like this. My heart knew that something was wrong. My heart knew that what I was doing was not going to take me down a path I wanted to go.
Right.
But my head and my body were just like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like you need your fix, which is basically what it came down to. So like that first like aha awareness came when I was going into work on my days off and stealing drugs.
Wow.
And I was like, how did this happen? For one, for two, like what? I knew I needed help, which was a huge awareness, but I don't know how to get it.
Right.
Or I wasn't willing enough to go explore how to get it.
Right. So your head and your body, like you said, the logic, so to speak, was that you needed to get stoned, and your body, it needs it now, right? When we start using things, it needs it. But then you talk a lot about your heart. That's where the awareness is, I think. And you and I both know the heart's connected to something bigger, a bigger energy, call it God or whatever. So that was, but you were still using maybe because there was that void inside of you. Is that
essentially like every day I'd wake up with like a resolve to like, today's the day I stop. Today's the day I quit. Right. And then my body would just take over and be like, no, just one more. And like, man, I became an after school special of addiction. And I was like, how the hell did this happen to me?
Yeah.
And, this piece of, so what ultimately happened was, they caught on to what I was doing. It was just a matter of time.
At the hospital.
Like I was very careful at first to cover my trail, cover my tracks. Like you can't find it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I got to the point where I was going in on my days off and just taking whatever and leaving. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was, I could, I could still be doing time, but for the grace of God and the people who helped me, they didn't press charges. But the ultimate culmination of all this awareness was I got called into my manager's office, and my director was there, and there's another gentleman there who I'd never seen before, who I learned was the inspector, was the gentleman who was actually looking at my case and trying to find out, hey, what is this guy actually doing?
Right.
And they had a file about 4 inches thick of my whole trail, of everything I was doing.
Yeah.
And they were asking me questions, and I knew that they knew, but I was still trying to establish some form of behavior or some rationale or reasoning why I would take these drugs at this time for this amount and all this stuff. And the most clarifying moment at that point came from this gentleman, which I think was like God speaking through him. And what he said to me was, hey, Bob, we know what you're doing. And I want to ask you a question. Would you want to work with someone who admitted they had a problem and got help? or would you want to work with a liar?
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, like the whole wall and the whole facade came crashing down.
Wow. Just from that moment,
And it was
powerful.
And what it was is because my response to him was, yes, it's me. I've done it. It was me. I did it all.
Right.
And it was the first time that I got honest, completely honest with how in trouble I was.
Right.
And I believe, I was probably a good 24 hours away from overdosing.
Wow.
Yeah. And
yeah. So they say Einstein said, coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous, right?
Yep.
So that guy had, I think he had a little bit of angel in him for sure.
Absolutely. And love and love comes in all kinds of ways. And, I truly believe that was God's love in a sense, God's love. Like, did it feel good? Absolutely not. Was it the scariest time of my life? Absolutely.
Yeah. Rock bottom never feels good, right, brother?
Yeah.
And we should all be, many of us should be thankful for rock bottom.
Right.
Because if we don't hit that, we're done. We're out.
Yeah.
Right. I take my own life, UOD. I mean, rock bottom is a safety net, man. As hard as it seems and as painful as it is. Yeah. So what's going on for you then when you hit that rock bottom and you said, all right, where's my path back?
So, I knew I needed help. I just didn't know what that looked like. And even like to the moment, like, so I went home and I had to like basically confess to my wife what had been going on, which she knew something was up the whole time.
Sure.
This was my then wife, we ended up getting a divorce, but
right.
Even up to that point, I'm like, I'm going to fix this. Everything's going to be okay. Right. Yeah. I still hadn't completely surrendered. And she had mentioned to me, she's like, when you said that you were going to fix this, that's when I knew how bad it was, because there was no fixing to it.
Right.
So I ended up going away for 4 months to intensive treatment program where they treat like nurses and doctors and
sure.
Like the healthcare community. And that was just a building full of angels.
Yeah.
And I finally got clear enough to realize that my addiction, my behavior was nothing but a symptom.
Yeah.
A symptom of something else. Right. And it was a symptom of a lack of connection. It was a symptom of a lack of something being connected to something greater than myself.
Yeah.
Which I created and nurtured was this relationship with God. Right. And it was a God. And like what they talk about is it's a God of your own understanding.
Oh, cool. I like that. A God of your own understanding. Yeah. Oftentimes I'll say to people, if you pray to your God of choice.
Yeah. Same thing.
I like that. No, I like the way you phrase that. It's cool. So go ahead.
Yeah. So what started to happen was I started to notice this like shift inside of me of feeling connected. I didn't feel so alone anymore. And that aloneness, I mean, not only with like having a whole community of people around me now who are all going through the same thing, being in a recovery community, to also having us connected to something greater than myself, this higher power, this, thing I choose to call God.
Mm-hmm.
It just gave me, it first gave me like the sense of purpose and the sense of belonging and the sense of that no matter what, it's all going to work out. And like I alluded to a little bit earlier, like what I was doing I could still be in prison. And this happened in 2007. Like the DEA was like showing up at my house.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were some very serious consequences. And time after time again, I just kept showing up.
Wow.
I kept doing the next right thing, something to talk about. And there were all of these like little coincidences or I call them God moments that started to happen and show up in my life that you can't explain other than divine providence.
Yeah. And
it was also like, okay, like God's got me. It was also like, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be safe.
Right.
And it was like meeting the right person at the right time or some like system of events that happens at work that allows me to, continue on when I shouldn't be. I should have been kicked out of the profession.
Yeah.
Just time and time again, something magical.
When you went away for 4 months then, and you got out, did you go back to work?
Yeah. So what had happened was, during that time, my case was still in review. My case with the state was in review for almost a year.
Right.
And, I was working with in a professional's assistance program who was kind of guiding me again, receiving that help, guiding me post.
Right. So did you go back to the same hospital?
No, they ended up terminating me.
Yeah. So you went somewhere else.
Yep.
And you had your support. Did you stay sober when you got out?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I stayed sober. And, one of the things I do is I knew I couldn't go back to the bedside. I couldn't go back to critical care. A lot of, I think my using was a result of just self-medicating because I just couldn't handle that environment anymore. The emotional toll, the physical toll of like every day is a life and death, critical, urgent situation. I just got burned out.
Yeah.
Which I think is common for a lot of folks, but
it sure is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went, went to treatment, got out, I stayed clean. I monitored, I had to call a telephone number every single day for 5 years.
Wow.
And the person on the other end of that line would say, report to your testing facility or do not report to your testing facility. And they would randomly drug screen me. It was part of my agreement with the state to keep my nursing license. And, so when I think back, it's like, God, how did I do that? And I was like, just one day at a time, which is also very common in the recovery committee.
Yeah. So what was the one kind of key thing that got you back? It was that surrendering that you spoke of, kind of owning it.
Surrendering. And I think the hardest thing that I learned through all of this was the ability to ask for help.
Yeah.
I think like as a man and just the way I was brought up to be a survivor and brought up to be self-sufficient, self-reliant and work hard and just get the thing that I need.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all, it's good, but it also left a very big gap of learning and knowing the importance of receiving help from others, whatever that is, or whatever that looks like. And I think that was, and still today is something I struggle with of reaching out for help or knowing when, Bob, you actually need help here, or Bob, stop trying to do this all alone. This is way too big of a job to be taking on yourself. So, and I think that's important as a leader, today is that leadership doesn't occur in a vacuum, and leadership can't occur in a vacuum. Like anything worth doing is going to require a whole team of people to support you.
Yeah. To support you. So let's talk now a little bit about that team of people that continue to support you. So you got divorced from your first wife, and then you met somebody else who has become your second wife. Tell us a little bit about her, how that happened, and what was that like? Yeah,
sure. So I had about, I think, 8 years of sobriety, and I was looking for, like, there was just something, I needed something. There was something more. I knew my life had more to offer, and I had more to offer. And, I ended up working with a life coach of all things, which I thought was, I didn't really know what it was. I thought it sounded kind of like quacky and
you and I get that a lot, right?
Yeah. And this man like fundamentally altered my course of life, and his guidance and support helped me start to see not only like my world in a different frame and what was possible in a different frame, but how I saw myself and what I was capable of creating. And, during that process, one of the biggest things he supported me with was who I was showing up as and how I was showing up in my romantic relationships. And at the time I was in a relationship with a wonderful woman for 7 years, and she just wasn't the one. She wasn't the person. And he helped get me clear on that. And I got to end that relationship.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for her either, and she knew it as well. But we got to end the relationship in the most loving and kind way possible.
Yeah, that's cool.
So here I am, like finally connected to who I am, what I actually want, what's possible.
And you're a big, handsome bachelor at this point, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, I was on like some of the dating apps, and just, I was putting myself out everywhere. And the way I was putting myself out was such a different approach to what I'd done previously. And for lack of a better word, like the women that were starting to show up in my life were the caliber of them, like the power they brought, and the contribution that they brought in their own lives to like a potential relationship with me was out of this world.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm like matching with these incredible women. And, you know, one of those women were, later became my wife. Her name's Shauna. And she was like the epitome of, or the avatar of the woman I was looking for, like powerful, independent, gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful, like connected, grounded. And you know, I matched with her on the dating app before she matched with me.
Right.
A couple of days later, I get the notification that, you know, she matched with me, and I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. It was like, it was like a miracle happened.
Yeah, that's one of those holy shit moments, right? Like,
yeah, totally. Totally. And then yeah, we had gone out on a few dates, and you know, it was I was like, here she is. Like I was so clear on, you know, what I wanted, that when it was in front of me, like I knew it.
Right.
I knew it. And on our fourth date, we were at dinner, and I heard a voice in my ear that said, you're going to marry this woman. And I was, you know, I had sworn off marriage forever. I didn't need it. Who cares? Like, whatever.
Yep.
And like, you know, with Shauna, I wanted everything.
Yeah.
I wanted everything with her. And like at that moment, like what I believe is that voice in my ear was the voice of my father, or the voice of God that speaks through my father, who passed.
Yeah.
But Danny, it was clear as day. I even like turned around to see if someone was behind me whispering in my ear. That clear. And it was so profound. And there have been so many just connections between Shauna and I when we were recording, like that you couldn't explain, that seemed like past life stuff. Like our old relationship that we had in past lives was showing up now. I mean, it was completely magical. And along the lines of like, you know, wanting to have it all with Shauna was, you know, our decision to become parents.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. And, you know, the thing is, you speak about here, I think when you're going through your addiction, I know, as you said, you started to surrender, and you just said, I am okay. I'm going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So that's that trust aspect that shows up, right? You don't hope. Hope is just to want something. Trust is to have a firm belief in it. And it seems too with Shauna now, same thing. Like you're like, oh man, I'm never getting married again. And then that little voice shows up, and people often say to me, you know, can you believe this person said they heard voices? Can you believe that? I'm like, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there is an intuition. There's a spirit where we do. Now, listen, sometimes those voices are evil, man. And they're trying to lead us to do some really bad things. And we got to pay attention and get some support through them. And sometimes they're beautiful voices that are just, you know, our human spirit, our divine spirit, giving us a little nudge, maybe in the right direction here on earth. So that is cool. So you get married with Shauna, and then you guys think about having a family, and she gets pregnant.
Yep.
And then though, what happens?
Yeah. So then, you know, here I finally meet this woman, and, you know, things are going great. And we were on the fence for a little while about, you know, do we want to have a child or not? And kind of came to that decision. It's like, if at least we should try, try, you know, and like, I had never wanted children ever in my entire life. In hindsight, I was just too scared to have children. Like, you know, being a father now is one of the most rewarding things that I've
well, listen, when we can't take care of ourselves, and I was with you back then, I'm thinking, holy shit, get married and have kids. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she gets pregnant.
Yeah. So she gets pregnant. And, I mean, the morning she woke me up, you know, and told me, I was just like, what? I couldn't believe I made her take another pregnancy test. I think I made her take like 3 pregnancy tests over the course of like 24 hours.
That's what we do as husbands. And they just roll their eyes and go, come on, man. We, you know, as significant others.
It is. Yeah.
I'm pregnant. I can take 100 tests and I'll still be pregnant.
Yep. And, the pregnancy in itself was a little bumpy. It was just a hard pregnancy for Shauna, and, you know, for me as well, you know, watching like my wife, this, you know, goddess, like powerful, strong woman, like just struggling through, a bit of the pregnancy. And on the 5th month anniversary of the pregnancy, my wife and I were putting together the nursery, and putting the furniture together, getting things ready.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like right when the pandemic like was full blown, like when everything hit.
Yeah.
And we were like, terrified of what was happening in our external environment, and also terrified of the thought of becoming parents. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of stress and a lot of things that were very concerning for us. So anyway, while we're putting together the nursery, my wife's water breaks, which at a 5-month pregnancy is essentially almost a death sentence for the baby. There's a less than 1% chance that the baby will survive. And
less than 1%, huh?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And we were like, we didn't quite know if that's what had happened. And we called our doctors, like, go to the hospital. We'll check you out. And again, this was like getting into the hospital is like getting through Fort Knox, with coronavirus.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
We're just like, just want help. Like here, like we're begging for help. And we're just like having to fight tooth and nail for it. And we finally get up, and test after test comes back inconclusive. And then, finally, as time went on, it became conclusive that yes, your water did break, and yes, you're going to lose the baby. And we were just like, oh my God, we were just devastated. And they gave us two choices at the time. One was to terminate the pregnancy, and the other one was to wait and see.
Right.
And I remember looking at Shauna, when we were given those choices, and I was like, I can't make that decision. Like, who are we to make that decision for this baby?
This life, right?
And so we're like, we're just gonna go home and wait. We'll not, because the risk is that Shauna could get septic, essentially get a blood infection or get very sick from this, and her life could be in jeopardy. So so here I face like, I'm gonna lose my baby and possibly my wife now, and I was just devastated. And the miracle of all of this is day by day, this little baby hung on. Day by day, my wife stayed healthy.
Yeah.
And, at 20 weeks, if Shauna were to go into spontaneous labor, there's not much that they could do for the baby, or if she, to get septic, they, we'd have to abort the baby. And so 3 weeks goes by, and we, every week we go in and we do an ultrasound of the baby, and he's in there growing and moving around, and still without any amniotic fluid. And, again, long story short, we get to 23 weeks. My wife gets admitted to the hospital due to COVID restrictions. I can't be with her. So she's up on the 4th floor in a hospital alone by herself. The only people that she sees are the nurses that come in to take her vitals, like once a shift. Complete mask, complete gown. She's completely isolated up there fighting for this baby's life. And she's
thinking she's going to be in there for, trusting 4 more months, right? To take the baby full
best
term.
Best case scenario is that she's there for the long haul. Right.
Hey, Bob, before we get to what happened next, because I know it's really cool. So you moved through addiction, you overcame it, right? You beat it. And now you find this wonderful woman, and you're ready to have a baby. And then the world throws you another proverbial curveball shit show. How did your journey through the addiction and what you learned and how you grew stronger? Did you draw on any of that? Were you conscious to say, hey, I've been there before, we can get through this? What was that like?
Yeah, like 100%. Like, at my darkest point, like I said, I was, hours away from dying. I had no doubt in my mind. And, I destroyed my marriage. I lost my job. I lost my home. I lost my car. I was like 31 with like a bag over my back, going back, move back in with my mom, and to to get my life settled. But what it, the lesson that taught me was like, I need help. I know I'm going to need help through this. The other lesson that I learned too was like to trust God, like trust the outcome. And it was, I think, a day or two after my wife's water broke, my wife and I in separate rooms. She was in the shower and I was in the bedroom, whatever. We both had this overwhelming sense of calm come over us, like literally at the same time. And what that was that no matter what, we're going to be okay. If the baby makes it, we're going to be okay. If the baby doesn't, we're going to be okay. Like no matter what, we're going to be okay. So there's that level of like trust that came in, which I think for me was ultimately from having that connected that connectedness to that power greater than myself.
Yeah. That's the Holy Spirit dropping in. St. Francis de Sales has a quote, and in there he says, God's either going to protect you from suffering or give you the unfailing strength to bear it. Yeah. And I think that's what you both experienced, that calm. Yeah. So anybody listening right now, if you're in struggle right now, there's strength for you. Just slow down and really call on the Spirit, something bigger, your God as you understand it, like you said. I think that's a key point to make. So now Shauna's up on the 4th floor and she can't come out and you can't go in. So as a survivor, you got very, very creative with your relationship. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, I sure did. So, my wife and I, by training, we're also relationship coaches. We support couples and singles and creating strong intentional relationships. And I remember the moment when she's like, I think I can see outside down to the street from my window. And I was like, really? Like, where do you face? And she's like, this. I'm like, I'm on my way. And it was almost like a reflex. Like I had to just go there and show up. And I, there was like snow on the ground. I remember like walking up to her room and just standing there and like being able to look up and see her face.
Right.
Like not through a screen, not through
so she could get out of bed and come to the window and stand there and look.
Yeah. For like 15 minutes.
Sure. And you're set up down on the sidewalk.
Yep.
What was that setup like?
So then I started like this tradition or practice that, I would show up to her window, and I started to create signs, make signs. And the thing that started a lot of connection between us was I asked her out on a date, which she assumed would occur like over Zoom, or I was like, hey, you want to get together on Friday, Friday night and have dinner with me? And she's like, yeah, that would be awesome. So that night I went and grabbed food from our favorite restaurant, and I had food delivered up to her room with some flowers. And then below on the, where I was at, I set up a table with candles and flowers. And, I made these signs I would hold up, like, I love you, or keep going, or, proud papa, like all kinds of signs. And the first, when I was like, hey, look out the window. And she got up and looked, and she I think she said like that it felt like I had, walked 1,000 miles or something like that to like show up for her like that.
Yeah. A lot of joy created there, I'm sure, for both of you.
Yeah. And it started to give me a purpose of like, hey, where's my fight in this? Like, how can I show up with this? And for her, it gave her a sense of the outside world, and gave her a sense of being connected, and gave her a sense that I'm right there with her. Yeah. Like, which I, of course I would be. And I remember how just appreciative she was of this. And like, people started like catching on to what I was doing, and they were like, oh my God. And I remember having this moment, like, of course I'm doing this. Sure. Like, I have to do this. And I had this sense, and I think someone reflected me like, Bob, not everyone will be showing up the way that you are for this. Yeah. And what started to happen was the hospital got whiff of what I was doing. And then the hospital ran a story, about the, husband who's rooting his wife and baby.
Sure. It's good PR for the hospital, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the local news station ran a story on me, and they came out and interviewed us. And then the next day, ABC affiliates picked up the story, and it went viral around the world.
I know. I Googled it. It's really cool. I tell anybody listening, just Google. I guess best way is what? Google Bob Conlin wife hospital.
Yeah. That's probably the best way. Yeah.
And you'll see the pictures and the stories and all. Yeah. It's really, really cool. Well, what you did, I think, Bob, is you shifted. And people, we talk about positive thinking and everything else. In that situation where your son, right, Forrest, who is now, but your son, when there's a less than 1% chance of surviving, most people are focused on the 99% that he's going to pass, right? Versus that, what if? And it seems as though through your actions and your energy that you created with Shauna, you shifted it to say, yes, okay, I understand. Here's the facts, and I'm not ignoring them. Here's what I'm going to focus on.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, so you're saying we have a chance,
right?
Even it's less than 1%. I'm going to fight for that.
Yeah, right on.
I'm going to do what I can to fight. And Danny, none of it made zero sense to do it. No. It made zero sense. Like my critical care nurse brains, like,
yeah. But see, that's just stats. It. You talked earlier. It didn't make any sense. Sense is from logic, man. Sense is from the brain. Sense is not from the heart.
Yeah.
You know, same way when you had that awareness about your addiction, you know, that came from the heart. That didn't come from the brain logic. When you did this and, okay, I'm going to sit outside at a little table and hold up signs for my wife. People are probably walking by and there's that freaking nut again, you know, and look at the energy you created. And I firmly believe that energy you created for you and Shauna went to Forrest and it contributed to this. And yeah, God sprinkled some of her magic in there too. Yeah. No question.
100%. And one of the coolest things that happened was more people heard about our story and more people prayed for us and more people put hands together for us and more people helped us in whatever way that they could.
Yeah.
You know, whether that was sharing our story of hope during one of the world's scariest times going through this pandemic or, praying for our baby. Like it was, like you said, like I firmly believe that had a huge positive impact in the outcome of having our son Forrest born.
Yeah.
You know, not only like was it like he just kept going, and every week, like every day, the odds of him surviving would increase.
Yeah.
You know, we were so thrilled with that. But up until the moment he was born, you know, we were given all the statistics of how sickly this poor, you know, little being would be, or how what a horrible life he would have, or just be wrecked with chronic disease. And you know, we were just like, God, what's going to happen once this baby's here?
Right.
You know, like what's going to, how are our life being impacted by then? And I remember having this conversation with Shauna, like after a very hard conversation we had with our medical team. You know, it's going to be okay. We're going to, whatever happens, we'll work through it.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we ended up having was a completely healthy, normal son.
Right. That's beautiful. Who is now how old?
He's going out. He'll be 18 months this month.
Right. And he's cutting some back teeth, right?
Cutting some back teeth. Yeah. He's getting into everything. He's learning.
Yeah.
Learning his temper tantrums. Yeah. He's just like a totally normal kid. And it's like,
snotty nose, crying, everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting relationship, because it's like, you know, here, like this was just this like spiritual, magical, angelic being that did whatever it could and brought all this like energy and all this hope and faith and everything in to be born.
Right.
And then, you know, to contrast that with like the snotty nosed, like crabby, almost 2-year-old who's like throwing a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah.
Because that's what they should do when they're cutting back teeth. I mean, that's it, right? That's it. Yeah. That is cool. Yeah. That is cool. What a great story, man. And thank you for some of the insights, you know, that you offered, whoever might be listening, myself included, right? I just think about the importance of creating joy. Joy is that internal pleasure, right? That other people see as happiness. You know, they probably walk by and looked at you and said, wow, that guy really looks happy, showing signs to his wife. Happiness is the external expression of joy, which is internal. So I think it's really so important that you kind of pointed out that. So you and Shauna, now you do some relationship coaching?
Yep. She and I, we run what's called the Living and Love Incubator. It's a 6-month program where we take couples and singles through just a very intentional process of learning what it means to actually be in relationship.
Yeah.
You know, whether that's the relationship with yourself, like what are the things you actually want? What are the things that you yearn for? And hey, like what's in the way of that? Right. And we're working to move that stuff out of the way so you can have that experience of joy or whatever it is that you want in life.
Yeah.
And then we work with couples too, who are, you know, at the beginning of the relationship all the way through, hey, this is our last effort. This is the last chance that we're going to give each other to work this relationship out.
Yeah.
You know? And man, you know, when you bring, I think with anything, when you bring intention into whatever it is you're creating and get help and support around that, like magic happens.
Yeah.
You know, magic happens. And that, you know, very much how intentional we were with having our son born, and how intentional we not only create our own relationship together, but the relationship with the people that we get to serve.
Yeah. Yeah. That's perfect. What you just said. I want to repeat it again. When you bring intention in and get support around that, magic happens.
Yep.
So bring the intention, get really clear, ask for help, and then trust that good things, magic will happen.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That is cool. What's where could folks find you? I'm going to ask you to give us 2 or 3 takeaways here at the end, but where can people go to find that? If there might be either a single that, got out of a tough relationship or looking to get into one, or a couple that's struggling right now, where would they find you?
Sure. Yeah. You can go to my website, which is conlancoaching.com. That's CONLIN coaching.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all over all the socials. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And then, the work that my wife and I do, that company is called We Meet Again. And that's wemeetagaincoaching.com for the website. But that name means just so much to me because it's just that notion of meeting each other again, maybe for the first time after you've been in a relationship for so long, or meeting yourself for the first time after trying to do all the things that you think would make you happier, do all the things that would, that life is supposed to offer. And then actually realizing that, hey, there's something more, something deeper than what I'm actually doing here.
Yeah. It's always good to realize something deeper, isn't it, my friend?
Yep.
Kind of uncover that. Well, that's cool. You're doing great work out there for sure. And your story will continue to inspire, and Young Forest continues to grow. I think that's great. So here it is, Bob. If you're having lunch or coffee or something with somebody and you're never going to see them again, and they say, hey, Bob, listen, I wish you all the best. I'm off into the rest of my life. What are 2 or 3 things that I should really stay aware of, consider? What principles should I practice? And you can only give them like 2 or 3 nuggets. What would you say?
Yeah. For one, I think is ask for help, be willing to not know and to reach out and get supported. And, and the other saying that goes around a lot in the recovery community is this, and it's trust God, clean house, and help others. And that trusting God, that's trusting whatever God means to you, and trusting that your understanding of God is sufficient to support you in whatever it is that you're up to in life. And that connectedness that comes with that relationship with God is so crucial. And this notion of cleaning house, which is taking that deeper look inside and looking at yourself and taking that inventory of like, what is actually not working for me, and why is it in place? Why does it keep showing up in my relationships or showing up with who I am in the world? And then being of service, helping others, I think is so important, because that also gets you outside of yourself. Right. And I think it just, as humans, we're meant to commune. We're meant to be with other people. We're meant to support each other. That's how we all survive and thrive, and it gets you out of yourself. So whatever helping others looks like for you, empower it. If you're not in some service-based activity, go try one on and see what works for you. I'm in service in a number of different ways in my life. And, and I'm human. Like, I don't want to show up and do the thing half the time, but when I do and I do it, I feel better. I'm a better person for it. Yeah.
Yes, you are. And the world is better for having you there.
Yeah.
That is cool. Well, listen, my friend, I believe that people along this journey are inspired by stories, and you certainly have some good ones on your journey. So thanks for making the time, and thanks for your insight and continued success and joy for you and Shauna and for Forrest. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Jenny. It's so great to be with you.
You got it. Well, everybody, listen, I'm sure you enjoyed it. And until our next episode of the Back to Life podcast, take some things away from my conversation here with Bob and begin to experiment with them in your life. And, go ahead and comment on this and share it and like it. And we'll see you again soon. Take care, everybody.
Well, I'm sure you enjoyed that conversation with my guest, Bob Conlin. What an amazing journey he's had, right? From overcoming addiction, battling through that, and then getting very creative and bringing a lot of joy to his wife, Shauna, and to himself, as they had that challenge of a less than 1% chance that their son, Forrest, would survive. Really, really powerful. A couple things that I took away from it. was Bob and I, our conversation with the difference of knowing when you need some help and support and having an awareness. I think knowing is connected to your head, right? You know logically that you should do something different in terms of your growth. And oftentimes we don't move from that, though. I think it's the awareness when it connects more to our heart and it connects more to our spirit. And as Bob said, the God of your own understanding, which I thought was a great way to put it. He also talks about the age-old principle of asking for help. So if any of you are out there struggling now in any area of your life, it's okay. Just ask for help. Get a clear picture of what you're looking to create for yourself, and let that help and let that support move you to action so that you create the other side. And the last one Bob talked about, you know, through his addiction and even with their struggle with Forrest, was that he and his wife, Shauna, they were in separate rooms and they had that feeling of peace. They had that feeling of, regardless of the outcome, it's all going to be okay. And as you know, with our jackrabbitisms and those things that we have printed on our t-shirts that are available out on our website, we have one that says IAGBO, IAGBO, and it stands for it's all gonna be okay. And I think it is, my friends. We're on this journey. It won't last forever. We have wonderful times of joy, and we have other times of pain and sorrow and heartache. And through it all, we can move through and continue on this wonderful journey of life. So until next time, go ahead, comment, like this, share this, and know that I wish you all the best and I appreciate you being here. Peace.